The vessel emerged from the darkness of space, just beyond the Oort cloud, where the vastness of the Sol system begins. Gas and dust stirred, disturbed by its presence. Local sensors sparked into life, signaling alarms only to be silenced as quickly as they began. Sol, distant and quiet, appeared as nothing more than a slightly brighter pinprick in the abyss. Morani approached cautiously. Her people had learned from the last system no species, when faced with extinction, would go quietly. No matter how peaceful they seemed, their desperation was always a force to be reckoned with. Humanity, no doubt, would be even more tenacious in their defense. They would have prepared anything, absolutely anything. Yet, as they drifted through the system, all was silent. Mining drones zipped past, oblivious to the presence of her craft. The dwarf planet they passed remained undisturbed, its mining stations abandoned and quiet. Even the gas giants, with their orbiting stations, lay dormant. The ship paused at Saturn, wary of traps hidden in its brilliant rings. Morani allowed herself a brief moment to admire the beauty of this alien system. Humanity was fortunate to be born in such a place. Perhaps when the future was secured, they could settle here. It would be fitting. It wasn't until they neared Jupiter that something happened. Her sensors screamed as a colossal human vessel uncloaked, emerging from the planet's swirling atmosphere. The ship, vast and intimidating, was reminiscent of a monstrous whale, but on a scale far larger than any sea creature. O.N. Roosevelt was emblazoned on its hull, in every script used by human civilization. Roosevelt didn't fire. Neither did the multitude of ships surrounding her, from every species in the Stellar League. Instead, the battle began with a broadcast. Every screen on every ship lit up with the face of a human, dark hair, black eyes, and a face that Morani recognized instantly: Miki Yamada, the human ambassador. Morani felt a flicker of respect for the ambassador, who had once tracked down her lobotomized assassin, but only a flicker. With a sharp command, she ordered the broadcast shut down, but Yamada's voice echoed through the ships before they could cut it off. "This is a message to the last," Yamada began. "I am Miki Yamada, ambassador of the human race. We have heard your story, your betrayal, the destruction of your homeworld. For that, we are truly sorry. But I'm not here just to offer sympathy. I bring a deal." Yamada's tone hardened. "If you stop this war, if you choose not to annihilate us, we will show mercy. We don't want to wipe you from existence." But Yamada paused, eyes fierce. "If you fire upon any of our worlds, we will retaliate with everything we have. You may think us weak, but we are not." The message ended, and Morani's technicians finally succeeded in shutting it down. She snarled at her crew. "They think we are fools," she spat. "Kill them all." Her command was relayed instantly, and ships poured out from her craft, weapons primed and ready. But aboard the Roosevelt, someone muttered under their breath, "We warned them." As the battle erupted, the asteroid belt began to stir, not the rocks themselves, but the ships hidden among them. An entire fleet, with ships from across the Stellar League, lay concealed between Mars and Jupiter. To Morani's disbelief, half of the vessels were of human design. Even stranger, some of them weren't spaceships at all. "Are those boats?" one of her officers stammered. Indeed, massive naval ships, outfitted with stellar engines and shields, had been launched into space. "That's one way to bulk up your fleet," another officer remarked dryly. Morani laughed, more out of surprise than humor. The humans had stuck engines onto boats. It was absurd, yet somehow it worked. Before she could process this bizarre strategy, her communications officer shouted. Another broadcast, War Queen. To her shock, the face on the screen wasn't Yamada, but Zuzina of the Dusi. "This is a message to the last," Zuzina began. "You have committed atrocities against the League and against my people. We do not want war, but we will fight to defend ourselves." The screen cut to images of refugees, Dusi, Vactor, and even humans fleeing the devastation the last had wrought. Morani sneered. "Propaganda," she muttered. But even she couldn't dismiss the gravity of what was happening. The League had found a way to use their communication networks, which should have been impossible. Someone within her ranks had betrayed them. The battle raged on, and the League's ships fought fiercely. Their lines held, but Morani felt unease growing within her. Why weren't they attacking her directly? Something wasn't right. As her craft advanced toward Mars, she noticed the moon's Phobos and Deimos acting strangely. They were accelerating, moving unnaturally fast. Her physics advisor, Dolga, confirmed her suspicions. Those moons, it's like they have engines. In a moment of horrified realization, Morani watched as the moons, propelled by hidden forces, hurled themselves at her craft. Phobos struck the main gun dead on, obliterating it in a catastrophic explosion. The auxiliary engines kicked in, but the damage was done. The craft was crippled. Morani's mind raced. The once impenetrable aura of superiority she had held shattered in an instant. The humans, those fragile, primitive beings, had done the unthinkable. They had weaponized their very moons against her craft. As she stared at the wreckage of Phobos and Deimos, now crumbling masses drifting through the void, the enormity of her miscalculation settled deep in her bones. "They threw their moons at us," Morani whispered, dumbfounded. For a long moment, there was silence in the command center. Her officers, many of whom had served her for years, looked at her with a mixture of confusion and dread. None dared to speak, not after what had just happened. Morani clenched her fists, her 4 eyes narrowing with fury. This wasn't over. The auxiliary engines were still functional. The craft may have been weakened, but it was far from defeated. Mars was still within reach, its fragile atmosphere just waiting to be torn apart by her weapons. She could still win this. Her technicians scrambled to comply. The ship's smaller, though still devastating, weapons began to hum to life. The auxiliary cannon, though not as powerful as the dark engine, would be more than enough to decimate Mars's surface. As the targeting systems locked on to the planet below, Morani allowed herself a cruel smile. "Prepare the secondary cannon," she ordered, her voice cold and steady. "We may have lost the main gun, but we can still finish the job." But then, something else caught her attention. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement too fast, too organized. What now? She hissed. The remnants of Phobos and Deimos were still moving. No, not moving, being pulled. Small, dark ships barely visible against the blackness of space were guiding the debris, using tractor beams and precision maneuvers to redirect the shattered moons. Morani's eyes widened in disbelief. The humans were using the wreckage of their own moons as cover, creating a field of debris that her targeting systems struggled to penetrate. "They're hiding," one of her officers muttered, but Morani knew better. Her question was answered when, through the chaotic swirl of moon fragments, she saw a massive human fleet emerging from behind the asteroid belt. Hundreds of ships, warships, carriers, and even those bizarre boat ships were advancing at full speed. And they were not alone. Ships from every species in the Stellar League had joined them, forming an armada that dwarfed anything she had seen before. "They're stalling," she corrected, her voice low and dangerous. "They're buying time for something." But what? Morani's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't the sheer number of ships that terrified her, it was their formation. This wasn't a reckless charge. The humans and their allies were moving in coordinated waves, each group covering the next. It was a flawless, disciplined assault. For the first time in her long reign, Morani felt a pang of doubt. "War Queen," one of her officers said cautiously, "should we?" But as the human fleet approached, something strange happened. Instead of focusing their fire on her craft, they began targeting her escort ships. One by one, her defensive vessels were picked off with surgical precision. Engines exploded, hulls shattered, and within minutes, her once mighty entourage was reduced to floating wreckage. "Silence," she snapped. She wouldn't allow weakness to take root here. Not now. Not when victory was so close. "Keep firing. Prepare the remaining weapons." We still have the advantage. They are nothing but gnats before our power." "Why aren't they attacking us directly?" her second-in-command asked, a nervous edge to his voice. Morani didn't have an answer. The human ships seemed to be avoiding her main craft entirely, as if they were more interested in neutralizing her support fleet. And then the realization hit her like a cold wave. "They're cutting us off," she whispered. The humans weren't trying to destroy her ship outright. They were isolating it, removing any chance for her to retreat or call for reinforcements. They wanted to trap her. "Damn them," she growled. "They think they can contain us? Prepare to fire on Mars, now." The secondary cannon hummed with energy, charging rapidly. The humans might be clever, but they couldn't stop the inevitable. She would make sure of that. Just as the cannon reached full charge, alarms blared across the command center. Morani's head snapped toward the main screen. A new fleet was approaching, but this one wasn't human. The ships were sleek, dark, and terrifyingly fast. "The night witches," she breathed. Carly and her sisters had returned, striking from the shadows like vengeful spirits. They tore through the remains of Morani's forces, moving with such speed and precision that her sensors struggled to track them. Each night witch was a force of nature, weaving through enemy fire with an almost supernatural grace. "Deploy our fighters," Morani shouted, but it was too late. The night witches descended upon her remaining ships, dismantling them piece by piece. Explosions rocked her craft as the last of her escorts fell, and still, the humans refused to attack her directly. They circled, waiting, watching, as if they knew something she didn't. Morani's hands tightened into fists. She wouldn't let it end like this. "Fire the cannon," she screamed. But just as the order left her lips, a shockwave rippled through the ship. The entire craft shuddered, lights flickering as systems went offline. Morani spun toward the nearest technician. What happened? Morani's blood ran cold. She glanced at the screen, searching for the source of the attack. And then she saw its small, nimble human ships, too tiny to be tracked by her larger sensors, had slipped through the debris field. They had targeted the craft's vulnerable underbelly, planting explosives in critical areas. "The auxiliary engines," the technician stammered, "they're gone. Something hit us from below." The craft was dead in the water. "No," Morani whispered, her voice trembling with rage. "No." As the human fleet closed in, she knew there was only one option left. She would not be captured. She would not allow herself to be paraded as a trophy of war. "Activate the self-destruct sequence," she ordered, her voice hard and final. "If we are to fall, we will take them with us." But just as her fingers hovered over the controls, a voice cut through the chaos. Miki Yamada's face appeared on the screen once more, calm and composed. "War Queen Morani," Yamada said softly, "it's over. Surrender, and we will spare your people. We don't want to destroy you, but we will if you force us." For the first time, Morani hesitated. She looked at her battered ship, at the wreckage of her fleet, and at the human armada waiting patiently beyond. The pride of her people demanded she fight to the end. But something deeper, something more primal, whispered that there might still be a way out. Her hand hovered over the self-destruct switch, and then slowly she pulled it away. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says we will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.